We ready to start? Good evening. This is the June 14th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission, and I'd like to call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll call the roll. Posiak?
Present.
Riley?
Here.
Kent?
Here.
Miles?
Here.
Banaz?
Here.
Kostick, I'm chairman, and we did have a seventh member, newly appointed, Tom Alvesto, and Tom is in the audience tonight. Congratulations, Tom, on your appointment as a trustee, and we're pleased to have you here. We have Joe O'Keefe from our wastewater plant services in the audience, and Mr. Chuck Dorenbush, a resident and citizen of the community, who said he's here to check on us to see what we do or don't do. So we're glad to have you here. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved and supported that the agenda for the June 14th meeting be approved as distributed. Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. You have in front of you the minutes of the May 10th meeting. Be appropriate to approve those minutes. Can we have a motion to do so?
Move to approve. Second.
Moved and supported that the minutes of the May 10th meeting be approved as distributed. Are there any corrections, additions, changes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So the minutes are approved. You also have vouchers, $12,987 to $12,992, pages 8 through 17 of your packet. I trust everybody's had a chance to look at those vouchers. Any questions on them? They look pretty normal for getting the beginning part of the fiscal year, so if there are no questions, can I have a motion to approve the vouchers? Support? Is there support?
Second.
Moved and supported that the bills or vouchers be approved as contained in our agenda packet, pages 8 through 17. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So the motion is passed. Item 7 on the agenda, we have a review of statements of revenues and expenses. And are there any questions? Those are found on pages 18 through 26. And we are in the beginning of the fiscal year, so a lot of transfers haven't been made between funds that are supposed to be made. So nothing looked out of normal to me on that. Any comments? If not, we'll receive and file those. Number 8 is approval of the Treasurer's Report for the month of May, page 27 and 28. We need a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report. This is for public service, the Department of Public Service funds, water, sewer, roads, drains, etc. Is there any comments or a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there support?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and supported that the Treasurer's Report for May of 2011 be approved as distributed. Any discussion?
Just a couple of comments, Jim.
Mr. Van Ness.
You'll notice that over the past, for the members who've been here for some time, over the past, this has diminished greatly. And a lot of the funds that were, is this mic on? Yeah. A lot of the funds that were held in advance for the sewage treatment plant catastrophic event fund were utilized to pay off the final phase of the sewer rehab, because we didn't know when we went to the tunneling phase, we didn't know what it was going to cost. So rather than go out and bond a number that we weren't sure of, we waited, and that payback is part of this bond issue that we're going out for, just as a matter of explanation.
Well, I think that's good that you commented on it, since you're the treasurer. And Ted, I would just indicate that I think the balance of 3 years ago or so used to run in the $2 million range for the DPW funds on hand, and Here it's 520,000. So if a bond issues, when the bond issue is sold, that'll replenish those funds.
Right. Actually, the payback will be close to $3 million back to this particular fund, which would be the sewage plant catastrophic event fund.
And we're going to be talking about roads later on the agenda. And we asked, a few years ago, we asked the treasurer to give us a summary of funds being held for storm and drain maintenance, for bike path construction and maintenance, and for the road improvement fund, all of which we are responsible for at least in an advisory capacity. And we're going to talk about roads later. Our road improvement fund, the balance on hand is down to $328,000. I think that's important as we prepare for our discussion, because this year our budget for our normal expenses for dust control, roadside, what little we budget for roadside mowing, and it did help last year, and then our supplement to Wayne County for snow and ice removal totals about $140,000 a year. So we really have essentially this year, 2011 and 2012, funds left, and you're going to hear about that when we get into our discussion, but I just want to refer everybody to page 28 of our packet, which displays the fund balance for that fund. So enough. Any other questions on the Treasurer's report? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The Treasurer's report is approved. Next is the Manager's report. Barry?
Yes, good evening. The first item on the manager's report is the United Water contract proposal. If everyone has had a chance to take a look at that, it's just a two-page letter from United Water. It spells out the new amount that they're asking for the operation of the plant over a 3-year period of time. And it's basically a business, at this point, this letter is basically a business proposal. This is what United Water proposes to do over the next 3 years for the money that's indicated in this letter. The way I envision this is if the commission is in favor of this business proposal as far as dollars and cents go, we could take this to the Township Board for their approval based on that, and then we could set up a subcommittee like we did before when their contract came up for renewal, and we could have the subcommittee review the actual contract. And then if everyone was in agreement with the contract, then I know this is going back to the board twice, but we could take it back to the Township Board for contract approval and execution. So that's basically, this letter is just a proposal. And the contract is,
Yeah, and if you've read this carefully, the proposal not only talks about just a 1% increase for the 3-year period over the current charges. That 1% increase equates to $295 a month. But it also proposes to assume the disposal of biosolids, which we call in the vernacular sludge, or the solids, and that would indicate a savings to us of at least $748. No,
Yes.
I'm sorry, $3,441.
yes.
And we also, some additional sampling and analysis costs that they would take on would save us $748. So really, this is it's not a 1% increase overall in our costs. It's really a reduction in our costs. Mm-hmm. I think that Barry's been negotiating with United Water. I think the other thing to consider is that I think any of us, we haven't received any complaints about their operation. So there's really two things here. Tonight, the action we'd like later is for you to consider a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to approve and extend the contract for 3 years for United Water. Now, just this past Friday, to accommodate some of these additional services, Barry received some contract language that needs to be reviewed, and primarily it looks at these additional services, incorporates them. But the last time we went through this, I think, John Riley, you sat on a subcommittee, maybe chaired it, that looked at the changes, So what we'd like to ask the action later tonight is to get a sense from the commission to approve the contract and extend it, which is my recommendation, and staff's. And then we would forward that to the township board. And if they agree, I know they've been under this presumption that we need to bid things out, everything. But in this case, I think we're so far into this with the wastewater plant, the improvements we've made. We're under an administrative consent order from the DEQ, Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. This is not a good time to be going out and considering another firm. Hate to put staff through that. There's no reason in our, that would be hopefully our recommendation. There's no reason to go through that. Then if the township board agrees with our recommendation, we would then spend time, John, and I would ask you to chair a subcommittee to look at the contract changes. And they're very minor. It's not like they're...
Yeah, it shouldn't be much. Joe's worked for this company and the 2 or 3 companies that preceded this one, so there's been multiple mergers. Once there was like a double merger. Month 1 there was one merger, and then month 2 there was a second merger. So it's not like we're having new people operating all the time. It's been Joe operating. And when we went and looked at the contract, the original contract that was generated a long time ago when we took over the sewer treatment plant, Tom Misko drafted that up. And eventually, we somehow located that and went back to it, and we only added 2 sentences to it. And they basically said that each party would indemnify and hold the other harmless for that party's own negligence. And we eliminated pages and pages of new contract proposal that were really not very favorable toward the township. So that's what I think we should be looking at again, and Joe's got the helm when it comes to that side of the fence. So you don't want to have many changes at all, and the contract's very simplistic as it currently exists, and it's worked for a long time, over 20 years or 25 years. When did we take over the plant? 86 or 87? It was right in there, I think.
88, so I think it was 87.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's all I have to say right now.
Okay. So that item, we'll address that later on our agenda, unless it would probably be more convenient to just go to it right now if anybody has an opposition to that. The action item is the United Water contract, which is found on pages 31 and 33. The outline, the recommendation.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Posier?
will we all be getting a copy of the proposed changes?
Yes, you will.
And
They just came in Friday, so
Yeah, I
I
just got
think
them.
the thought is we'll work on that in the next month with the goal of having the changes brought back to the commission at the next meeting, next month.
I'll get one tomorrow. Thank you.
Does anybody want to offer a motion now while we're on the subject, or wait till we get to it?
Sounds good to me. I make a motion we accept it as it's written.
Okay, it's been,
Mr. Chair,
yes?
this is going to create a little confusion at the board level, so I think we need to be cautious as to what we approve here.
All right, are you suggesting that we should not take it to the board until we have the whole thing?
No. What I'm suggesting is that, let me finish reading it. We've jumped to this, and I have it. Let me just read this.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll come back to it, okay?
All right.
In the normal sequence of things. With that, Barry, you want to report on the dust control?
Sure. Item number 2 on the manager's report is the dust control update. We had the dust control applied last week on Wednesday and Thursday. Went very well. We put down 58,200 gallons of material at a cost of just under $30,000 for the first application. Received numerous calls from people in appreciation. In fact, one as late as today. So, and it does look good. The material's down. It looks in good shape to me, and everybody seems to be pleased with it. In fact, I don't think we had any negative calls this year on it at all. So, went very well.
Just a comment, you had the perfect weather to apply it.
Yes.
You had a moist soil to start with.
Yeah, and it was a little dicey there for a while, but it worked out real well.
When you put that stuff down on dry soil, it tends to cake on top, but this is drawn right in. This will be probably one of the better applications.
I think so too, Wally. That's all I have Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, there is one item that I asked that you distribute a memo, which people should have on the bench here. It has to do with the Meridian Road closure. And Barry, I heard Township Manager Reung report to the Board of Trustees last night at their meeting. I happened to see it on TV, so I thought it'd be good for the commission to get an update. So on Monday, June 20th, beginning at 8:30 in the morning, that's Monday, June 20th, that's next Monday.
Would you like me to do it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do it if you like. Yeah, I sent out a memo to the commission today, and along to Mr. Ream also as a township manager. We run into a situation on Meridian, right at Lakewood, where we had a large sinkhole in Meridian Road, where a water main goes from one side of the road to the other. That particular stretch, and it's only about 40, 50 feet, we've had 4 water main breaks in that particular area on the old line. It's an old 6-inch line. So before we go in there and do some major road repair, which we're going to have to do, I'm going to replace that entire piece under the road from one side to the other, reconnect it on both sides before we put the road back. So, and this is scheduled for June the 20th, beginning at about 8:30. We're going to have Meridian closed from Thoroughfare to Church. So we're going to set up detour signs that's going to route traffic northbound Thoroughfare to Church Road back to Meridian, southbound Church Road to Thoroughfare back to Meridian for probably one full day, as we have to cut the entire road in two. We're going to, we've got it advertised on cable and on the website. We are going to put up door hangers to notify the residents who are going to be affected by the water being shut off. And I think the maximum number on that is about 21. And if one of the valves that we have, that one of the old valves doesn't work too well, if we can get that valve turned off, I think it'll only affect about seven homes. So we're working on that to make sure that everyone's notified ahead of time that the water's going to be off for that particular day.
So the water will be off during that period for those few residents, the whole day, the whole time?
Yeah, I'm saying the whole day. There's quite a bit of work that needs to be done, and in fact, it could go into the evening, depending on how it goes. But yes, we don't have any. We have to get it done in one day because we have the water shut off. So it's got to be done, even if we have to work late.
Mm-hmm. Are there any questions? I thought everybody should know about this. Okay.
You can ask people to stock up on water for their bathtubs or whatever.
They can do that if they like, yeah. They can run some water in the tub and the sinks, whatever, draw some bottles of water for drinking if they need it, whatever the case may be.
So they'll get the notice, like, by Friday.
Yes.
Are we going to put anything in the paper?
It's too late to put anything in
Too
the
late.
paper, so,
When we're completed, we're going to repave.
yes. What we'll do the first day, when we actually excavate across the road, at that, it's going to be all stone compacted backfill, and we'll put cold patch on it for the night, for traffic to go over it, to resume going over it, then we'll follow up with the repaving. So, and we'll try and do the repaving where we only have to close half the road at a time.
Well, that should be the best section of Meridian that we have.
Yeah, it's long over. That piece is long overdue for a replacement. I mean, we've had major, and I would rather go this way with it and have a plan to shut down rather than have something happen in the middle of the winter and we've got chaos on our hands. So, because this line does feed directly from our 16-inch transmission main that runs down Meridian Road, so it's rather a critical line.
One other question.
Go ahead.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Is that part of the section of line on Meridian that we plan to replace in the next 3 or 4 years?
It was on, a portion of that was on the capital improvements plan, yes. Mm-hmm.
We're going to go from Bridge Road.
It was going to go from, my memory serves me correctly, there was a section of it, I think, that was going to go from Bellevue north to, I don't know if that particular piece went all the way to Bridge or not, that first section. I'm not sure. But it went quite a distance north. I don't have it in front of me here right now.
Thank you.
And what's the approximate range of cost?
Right now, I'm not really sure. It really depends on how long it takes us to do it. I mean, I've got Campo Brothers is going to be in there doing it. They're a reliable, reputable contractor. We're going to be overseeing it, so it's going to move right along, I can guarantee you, but I really don't know at this time. Probably several $1,000s.
Okay, we will, hopefully that goes well, Barry. Another, I just want to call, before we leave the manager's report, near the back of your packet on Grosse Ile Township letterhead is a letter to Mr. Aboud Ataya of Soli Construction. And Soli Construction is the contractor that's going to do the drain repair near the entrance to Westcroft Gardens on West River Road. And the staff and I have been talking to the parties involved, the owners of Westcroft Gardens, as well as the contractor. And we've worked out a schedule now that they're going to start July 11th and complete the project by August 30th. And Westcroft Gardens is okay with that. They'll have access to their business at all times. And basically, for the audience's sake, the drain that crosses a huge deep drain by the driveway to Westcroft Gardens, and a year and a half ago, the guardrail caved in, and that road was eroding. Now, the county came back out and put a section of guardrail, but our plan is to widen the drain and the guardrail sections by at least 4 feet on either side, and that road dips down, so we're also going to put, at the lowest point, raise about a foot of asphalt, and for about a 200 stretch, so you have a nice smooth road through that area. And the guardrail will be set back, the drain banks will be set back, and put in some new retaining walls. So it'll make a nice drainage improvement there. It's an unsafe situation, especially in the wintertime. So our concern has been, we did not want to disrupt the business at Westcroft Gardens. So it looks like they're on schedule for that. I wanted to call that to your attention. Now, one thing I wasn't aware of is the road closure, and that is yet to be clarified in terms of the length of the road closure. Do you know what they're talking about?
The length of time?
Yeah.
I'm not really certain at this point. I know there's going to be some total road closure because of the narrowness of that structure right there.
Right. So that's an issue that I want to minimize the time that there's a total road closure.
Right, and we definitely will.
For the most part, there won't be a need for a total road closure, except for a few days, as far as I'm concerned, but we'll take a look at that.
Mr. Chair, could we get a commitment letter on that so we know exactly what it's going to be?
Just time-wise, it's probably...
I'm just afraid if we don't get some kind of a commitment letter from him and he closes the thing for 4 weeks, he said, well, I told you I was going to close it.
Well, during the discussions at the pre-construction meeting, he indicated it could be up to 30 days.
Well, we didn't agree to that, so
No, I know we didn't.
you and I will call the contractor, and we're going to meet with him.
Yeah.
Does Dubasay know about that? Westcroft?
I think she knows about road closure.
For 30 days?
I don't know.
Well, I'm not aware she does, and I'm not in accord with the 30-day road closure either.
I mean, that's
ridiculous.
major. I mean,
Right.
if we can't get it done quicker than that, we better review this.
Well, we will clarify that, Barry.
Okay.
So I wanted to call that to your attention.
Are they going to build her driveway up according to the road?
They've made an agreement, and a copy of the letter, her letter, is attached. They'll keep their drive access open at all times.
Well, she'll have access at all times, but it would be from the north side of the...
But Soli Construction will deliver and place extra stone in her drive. That's item number 5. In her parking lot, as requested by Denise DeBosse. So there's 8 items that they've talked about. So I wanted to call that to your attention.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a suggestion that if this road closure is going to be extensive, that this be brought in front of the Township Board.
Okay, that's fine.
What's
With some
extensive?
dates and times so we know what we're going to have there.
You want to know the time that it's going to be closed?
I definitely. I mean, closing West River Road for 30 days is excessive.
Well, that was never my understanding. That's why I brought this up. So,
I think if we're going to get an extensive closure, we may want to review this project at the board level.
okay, no problem. I'm sorry? Frank's asking a question about item number 3 and the letter to Solly to West Croft Gardens. Well, that doesn't apply with the change schedule.
Okay.
That was referring to construction in 2010, and it didn't take place.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there there are no other items that you have, Barry?
No, sir.
Okay, the next item is discussion item 10 on the agenda, discussion of our road funding issues. This is an important item, and I asked Tom Malvesto if he could be here tonight with us. Tom participated, along with Gordon Miles, myself, and Wally, in a subcommittee meeting on our roads. And contained in your packet, page number 29, I'd just like to review our recommendations. We spent an hour and a half discussing our efforts in the past. So the minutes read that the subcommittee discussed as its primary goal to develop recommendations to address the township's road funding issues. Reviewed were the funding over the past 25 years, where we levied since the 70s, or I guess since the 80s, $1.75 million for roads. And past expenditures, we talked about the November 2010 failed millage proposal, which was to restore that 1.75 mils, and the current road funds balance, which we talked about earlier tonight, current maintenance and construction needs, how the county funds our roads and where they get funding from roads. Because we are a township, we get no road funds directly. They come through Wayne County, and Wayne County owns our roads, and the need to develop a greater citizen understanding of our road funding issues. So after considerable discussion, we came up with an 8-point plan for you to discuss tonight. One, these are not set in concrete here, but form a community roads task force was one idea, and allow citizens concerned about their neighborhood or primary roads to get involved. 2, announce that at the DPS Commission meeting in June that concerned citizens will be invited to our July meeting, where they can participate in a lengthy discussion on roads, where we would have a presentation made, similar to what our brochure was, Gordy, and possibly the formation of that Community Roads Task Force. 3, as part of that process, ask the EO Camera to do a cover story on roads funding in our July meeting. And regarding our website, request the cable staff to prepare an interactive link for a survey on roads and develop road funding and information programs. 5, that the DPS Commission and staff prepare a presentation on how we see the road funding and road repair needs of the township. We've done a lot of that work with the preparation of this in 2010 about our roads. 6, develop a new multi-targeted marketing effort that will broaden DPS Commission's ability to get information to the community. 7, look at township special millages. Are there any other millages that would expire, or that could be expired, and in its place use that money for roads? And we understand the sensitivity. Many people don't want to pay any more taxes, even though property values have dropped. Consider going back to the voters this November, requesting a mill for road maintenance and repair. A mill will raise $560,000. Now, I know that there've been some discussions, and there's extensive notes in your minutes of the last meeting where you did talk, and Ted, you read the discussion, talked about raising about $300,000 a year, which would equate to $500,000, to cover our annual maintenance costs. So we could do the snow removal, the roadside mowing, dust control, and put about $150,000 a year into joint sealing, concrete slab repair, and that wouldn't go very far, because over the years, we've been spending around $300,000 a year on some of those maintenance items. So that's the summary of our meeting. I asked staff to include in the packets this summary that we put together a year ago that explains all this. And so now we'll open it up for your thoughts.
If everyone else is bashful, I'll be glad to start. I've been involved in Groseal's roads and watched their deterioration and their building up over the last 25 years. And right now, we're on our way down. I see a ending pot of funds because of the expiration of our millage and the no renewal at this point, at which point nothing can be done to our roads unless Wayne County pays for it. Nothing means no extra snow plowing, no extra salt, no salting or additional salting and plowing of the roads for the school buses in the fall or winter. I know that the committee or some members of it have driven the roads in Groseal together as a group just about every year, but even if you don't do that, if you're a regular resident here, you have to notice that our roads are failing. We have roads that are not owned by us, and we are asking Wayne County, who is probably in worse straits than we are as a township, as a county, to help us and maintain and improve our roads. And their standard excuses, we have no money, and they have to spend their money where it does the most good for the entire county, and that means that a road that has 100,000 cars a day versus a road that has 1,000 cars a day, you can guess where the attention goes. This task force and this whole effort is to make people realize, number one, that if we want our roads to stabilize and improve, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to do it ourselves. And number two, if we have to do it ourselves, it takes a lot of input. Number three, we have other millages. There are special millages. As a township, we vote for the things that we want, and the people that want open space, the people that want sewage or special assessment districts, they all get their opportunity to vote yes or no on their projects. And I see a possible fix to this situation in the past. In the past, our last millage that expired for roads was allowed to expire so that we could keep our open space millage going and not result in a net increase in taxes to our taxpayers. And when that happened, that was a good deal for our folks at that time. But that was then, and this is now. I think we need to take a good hard look at our special assessment, or our millages, not our special assessments, to see if there's a place where we can gather a portion of or all of the road funding necessary to get this mill, which could raise us about $600,000 a year. And as you have heard just a little bit ago, we're spending at the rate of about $300,000 a year now, and in another year we're going to need $600,000 a year. These roads are not going to heal themselves. So that's my first 2 cents, gentlemen. And
Well, the group is silent tonight. Tom Malvesto, I ask you to be here tonight. Do you have anything to add to the discussion? Yes, please.
Tom Melvista. No, actually, Wally said it all. I'm in 100% agreement with him. We did that, our subcommittee meeting, we came up with some ideas. I think at least some of them ought to be put forward, engaging the residents into accepting the fact that our roads are not going to heal themselves. We spend a certain amount of money each year just to maintain them for the bare minimum. And the only thing I would add to it, if there are grant monies out there, and you have to have matching funds in order to get them, we don't have anything to match. It would be very important that we do get a 1 mil on the ballot. We start building up some funds. We start repairing our roads. I'm in 100% agreement with Wally. Being new to this, it makes sense to me, but we have to engage the residents. We can't afford to have a running battle with them. That why isn't Wayne County doing it? When we all know that that's not going to happen. It's going to fall on our shoulders. That's really all I can add.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Tom, can I just add to that a little bit for you? You've pointed out something really critical. One of the ways that we could face this situation is by battling with each other, and that doesn't fix 1 inch of road. We have to figure out a way to make this thing happen. I must remind the members of this board, and Mr. Riley has been around here for a long time too, you should remember this, when that roads millage was put in place initially, it was not to fix the meridians and the east rivers and the west rivers. It was made to fix local subdivision roads. And now our scope of repair, by necessity, looks like it's going to have to change. How do you tell a guy in LaSalle Court that we got to fix Meridian and you got to live with yours for a while when he's been up here so many times? These are the things we're going to face as a commission, and he's got a valid point. We do too. We need to find some consensus. We need to get a group of people together that understand and will help us to figure out a way to fund this. And I am 100% a proponent of looking at what's on our millage roster right now and seeing what we could do to keep our millage level no higher, if at all possible, but still collect money to do a little bit more to the roads than we've been able to. If you collect a couple $100,000 a year, we may be able to get a few more repairs done, and if we do have a catastrophe, we will have funding available to take care of that catastrophe. Right now, we're running paycheck to paycheck, and we got a contract that's about to end for that last paycheck, $300,000 from now. Thanks for agreeing. We seem to agree a lot on things.
Well, we all know the patient's sick. There's no question about that. It's just how we're going to treat the patient and who we're going to bring in and engage to come up with a solution. And I think the residents have got to be brought into it. Otherwise, I'll just turn down another millage for whatever reason.
Thank you. Other comments from the commission?
I've got one thing. I think the residents ought to be aware of what 1 mil will do. 1 mil will not pave a road.
Right.
What's the cost now, Barry? $1 million a mile?
That it was at one time, Frank. I'm not sure whether that still holds or not.
Well, to resurface, we were talking about upwards of $500,000 for like Meridian or East River. To resurface a mile was about $460,000. It may be $480,000 or close to $500,000. That's to mill off about 3 inches and then resurface it. But to rebuild Church Road for 1 mile between Meridian and we know Church Road is in very bad shape. I think the estimated cost, the last I heard, without major work, just to resurface and possibly widen it a foot or two, was $1.2 million.
The rule of thumb on concrete road used to be $1 million a mile if it was concrete replacement road.
What about from the commission? The subcommittee made a recommendation that at our July meeting we try to promote getting citizens to come on in. We don't, and the question that's out there is, should we invite citizens in, make it known that we want to have a road discussion, and if there's enough interested citizens, our thought was, well, we could have a task force. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Or
Mr. Chair, I'd like to just say that I think that inviting the citizens is critical, and I'm more on getting their input than forming a task force, but getting their input is critical to me. And I think you probably all share that opinion. This is a tough time. Every dime we spend is hard-earned at this point, and we want to just make sure that enough people get in here and understand what they're buying, what they need to buy. What did I just say? Bring people in, but let's not worry about a formal task force.
Okay.
Let's bring people in and listen to their careful, constructive criticism and comments on what we do need. Maybe they see something we don't.
On the recommendations we made then, Ted, are you in accord with our July meeting, having a discussion with the public, trying to encourage them to come?
I'm a little bit concerned about the timing because we need to have something put together or some action plan in place by, I believe it's the 5th of August to get on the November ballot. I do not believe we can let this slide another to another election cycle. We need to get it on this ballot. And I think what's happening, I think the pulse that I'm starting to feel with the community is most of its priorities. We're dealing with a lot of priorities, and it's not this commission's responsibility to add or delete any millage request. It's our responsibility to go to the township board with a recommendation to ensure that we can do our job properly. Then it becomes a responsibility of the township board to make the decision as to what is their priority. Do we move ahead with, if we have millages that we are able to collect but don't need to collect, should we not collect those? Should we make a commitment to the community that we wouldn't do that? Those are all board decisions. And you can rest assured that I'll try to direct it to the best interest of infrastructure on this island. I think the infrastructure on this island, once we lose it, it's going to be years and years and years before we get it back. I don't see a clear sky ahead financially for this community for 2 to 3 years. We're currently operating at a deficit budget, going into some prior year resources that fortunately we do have, so financially we are in pretty good shape. But I think we really need to look at where our priorities should lie. And I think they need to lie in infrastructure. I think they need to lie in our water system. I think they need to lie in our sewer system. And I think they need to lie in our road system. And unfortunately, those are the 3 biggest cost items that any community faces. But Barry was telling me the other day, this area that we're repairing under Meridian Road started to create a sinkhole. Well, you've heard about some of the disaster sinkholes around Wayne County. I mean,
26-mile road.
We're talking people falling, cars falling in holes. Well, you might think we're immune to that, but we're not immune to that. I mean, that could happen if we don't stay on top of this system. So I think we'll let the board, we'll make our recommendation to the board. I'm a little bit concerned. I don't know if we can do it any sooner than that, Mr. Chairman. But I think we need to be prepared to really promote it and drive it within the next 2 weeks, because we have to have some action going forward by, and I think it needs to be a joint effort with the township board to take a look at the current millages that we levy and see if we can make room for an enhancement to the road millage program. So at least we can plow roads, at least we can do some maintenance on roads. Because without that, I can't imagine what this community is going to be like. I mean, it's not going to be a community we know if we don't do this. If we run out of those funds, it will not be a community that we know. So if we're prepared, if you think that, I know we're already in June, if you think we can get the publicity out, then by all means, let's move forward with it. And an open forum to the community is a great idea. I think we'll get the input. The more people we can get excited about this thing, the better chance we have of passing it. And the excitement will come with education. We can excite them by educating them. And if we can do that in July, then by all means, let's do it and push it as hard as we can, because we need to have something on this ballot by November.
Well, that's good. Appreciate those comments. And then the purpose of this was to discuss this tonight, and related to your thoughts, Ted. I think that the deadline for a ballot proposition is 60 days before the election. So we'd have to approve something at our August meeting, but it's not inconceivable that at our July meeting, if we have a sort of an information meeting on it, public discussion on it, we could make a recommendation at our July meeting. Even. That would give us plenty of opportunity to go to the board. That's a thought, too, to lay out.
I think that's what we need to do. We just, I guess everybody on this commission needs to be aware that this has to be a real driving force, because it's already June, and we're out of time already.
And I suppose one of the ideas that was contained in our last discussion a month ago on this is that the thought is we at least need $300,000 a year. If we had a $500,000, that would give us an opportunity to do more improvements, and even maybe put some money towards the possibility of attracting a grant where we'd have to have 20% match on some of the roads. Now, very few of our roads are grant eligible, but one of the things we'll have to talk about is, do we go after $300,000, or do we go after, and that could be a little over a $500,000, or do we go after the a full mill? We went after $1 3/4 and lost substantially, even putting some materials out, but it was at a time a year ago the economic picture was, I'm not sure it's bright now, but it was not as bright as it is. But that's one of the issues we'll have to address.
Yeah, I think that meeting, that public meeting needs to include the township board, because I think decisions have to be made at that meeting, and we have to move forward with it from there.
So we would invite the township board as well. Very good.
Yeah, we need to do that.
I'm going to see if anybody else here, Gordy.
The township board approved the cancellation of the road millage the last time.
Yes, they did.
In 2004.
Expire.
In 2004, Wally?
Yes.
Yeah. And that was because, as I understand it, we had $4 million accumulated, correct me if I'm wrong, and we've spent it. And one of the greatest improvements we made was the ramp coming off the county bridge, the Free Bridge. And I always brag about this because we not only improved that, but from a safety standpoint, we used to have 22 accidents a year at the bridge, or West River Road ramp met the bridge before we made the improvements. And 11 of those 22 each year were, on average, were injury accidents. And that 22 accidents, I was told by chief, our police chief once, that was more than the rest of the island in terms of accidents. And I don't know if it's still valid, but a year ago, after 3 years of having the ramp in, we hadn't had one accident at that location.
Yeah, they've gone away.
So that was a tremendous improvement for the public safety. We improved a lot of interchanges, but that's what happened. John, you haven't spoken on this issue.
It's maybe this would point up something else too. We have I'd call it, say, the catch-22, negative salesmanship with respect to a new road millage. And the catch-22 is an on-grow seal. Every day, people go to work and they drive off the island and they go up to Jefferson and they hit that ridiculous scenario there. Bicyclist was killed a few years ago, and that's out of our bailiwick. We really don't have any authority to do anything with the roads off island. But we have to drive through that ridiculous mess. And I understand there may be other information, perhaps people here tonight have it, but I understand there may have been some money the county was going to spend, but the local community off island had to contribute some additional money and they wouldn't do it. So we want to repair our roads out here, and subconsciously at the very least, and maybe consciously, when people hit that curmudgeon situation over there, that's a negative selling point to our repairing our roads. And I don't know what that catch-22 answer is over there, but it impacts what people think about roads out here too by way of new millage. I know it does, it has to, because you can't ride that rocky road without feeling offended by that condition. I don't know what that answer is, I'm just throwing it out there. The other thing is, if we have 10 places on the island, we need repair on the island, in our circle. When we raise millage, we will not be able to pay for all 10 of those repairs at once. So some have to fall into a secondary position. Everybody's got to realize that. Because this economy is very difficult right now. And the other day, I think when the county had their power outage, the county executive wanted the individuals that couldn't come to work to use their vacation time. And it wasn't their fault. They had an impossibility situation. The elevators in the city-county building, et cetera, weren't running. So given that, we know the county's not going to spend a lot of money, so we know we have to do something. I think we need to go small as opposed to large. And maybe smaller is better right now because you can explain to the people, we need maintenance, we need salt, we need some crack sealing, we need some limited repair, and begin a process where if things turn around in 2015, Oakland thinks it's 2013, Oakland County. Maybe it's 2015, 2016. If things turn around, you can go in for more millage. But it's harmful to go back in for a large millage and have it fail again. I really believe it is. So I would think you need to go for a smaller millage. It won't be as invasive to the taxpayer's wallet, with the understanding no matter how much millage we had, we couldn't fix all the problems right now. And some of the problems we can't fix, they're off-island. And I'd like to discuss that off-island situation with you or some other people at some later juncture, because that's a negative selling point. It hurts us. Even though it's not our responsibility, it hurts us. No question about it. And it hurts our community. Somebody comes out here and they show up for dinner, and how are you feeling? Well, not so good. My stomach got so jostled when I got here. My appetite's off right now. I mean, I'm kidding, of course, but that does happen. Or somebody comes here, corporate transfer, and the wife and husband and the kids drive out here, and they bang around in their SUV until they get out to the island, and the wife goes, holy smoke, we got to drive this all the time coming off here. What's the matter with it? Tell them to take the toll bridge?
Yeah.
Well, Paul probably wouldn't mind that, but a lot of people won't do that. So that's enough said. And I think it is a real problem.
The only thing is, by going with the lower millage, then we're only asking for maintenance money.
That's
There
all
won't
right.
be any repairs made to speak of.
And sometimes that's the way you have to start.
Yep.
I don't have the perfect answer. I can tell you, if I could see the election results in November, then I could give you the perfect answer. But I can't do that. You can't read the stock reports the next day after the stock already goes up or goes down. You know, that's the thing.
No.
So we don't have 20/20 hindsight on this. No way.
And Mr. Riley's talking about the intersection of Jefferson and Grosse Hill Parkway, where, as we all know, it's very bumpy,
That's right.
not a smooth road. It's in the city of Trenton, and we don't know when that will ever be fixed. We did ask, this commission adopted a resolution back several years ago, when the bridge was closed, if you remember, urging that Grosse Hill Parkway and that intersection be done while the bridge was closed, and of course, that didn't happen. But we did ask, so it's a good point, though. And Tom, you wanted to say something else? Yes.
Tom Molesto. Just as a thought, in reducing the millage, may not be a bad idea, and I brought up a point one time that we don't want to compete against other millages that may or may not be on the coming ballot in the end of the year. But I'm very sensitive to this Church Road. Would it be prudent to have a millage on the ballot for the repaving of Church Road? It is a safety issue with school buses, with our elementary children. Just like that stretch of Meridian was starting to create a pothole, and who knows how far they could have gone with the water main leak. But what if we lost the road bed on Church Road at some point in time over the next 2-3 years? And the way it's deteriorating, it's really not too far-fetched an idea that we could lose the road bed.
Yeah.
Would a half-mil millage over 3 years, would that create $1.5 million? It's just an idea.
Sure. I have a suggestion on that. Ted mentioned it in the minutes of our last meeting, Ted, and you were referring to the fact that if we do get a maintenance millage in place, we may have to go with every road improvement issue as a separate voted issue. And rather than a millage, one issue you could put on the ballot, let's say Church Road, or paving through...
No, say Church Road.
Say Church Road. Or I want to also say maybe a different issue would be paving, resurfacing 3 miles of East River or 3 miles of Meridian. But at any rate, let's just take Church Road. Say it's $1.4 million. Let's just raise it. It was $1.2 million. Let's say it's $1.4 million. And we have a design scheme for it, and we've got agreement from the county. Okay? And when I say agreement from the county, we're doing a design for our project, not for a massive widening like the county would like us to do, but what we want to have done. And say you go for a bond issue and for Church Road. Well, now you can retire that bond over whatever number, up to 15 years. Okay? You pay a little more interest cost, but it's easier on the so you'd be talking less than $100,000 a year bond payment if you did that.
I understand. I'm just thinking the sensitivity of another bond being issued. So I just threw that out. If we did a project-specific along with additional maintenance.
Okay, we'll talk about bonding versus millage at some other time.
Yeah, but that was
there's a way to do it, and bonding has its advantages because it's specific, and you can spread your payments out over a number of years. If you go for a millage and you got to ask for a millage for 15 years for just to raise $100,000 a year, I mean, you could do that too, if you follow me. I mean, I don't know what's going to sell the best.
Well, if you...
There's either option.
Could I make a comment?
Yes.
Tom, the main problem with bond issues is people do not understand them. That's the main issue with bond. When you talk roads and road repairs, if we are going to accept the road repairs, and it looks like we might have to do that, there's still some issues with Wayne County, but if we have to accept that, we're not talking $1 million. We're not talking $2 million. We're talking $15 or $20 million. The only way that we can invest that kind of money in our road system is on a bond issue. It's the only way to do it. Because we can't go out for millages because our tax base would be so high, everybody would be moving off the island. So you don't go to buy a house and walk in with cash. Otherwise, you don't buy a house, you rent. Well, we can't rent roads. We are responsible to fix these roads or maintain them. Now, we don't have to. We can just stand on our laurels and say, that's Wayne County's problem. But Wayne County doesn't drive those roads. You do, I do, the rest of the citizens do. So, the fear of a bond issue is because people do not understand what it can do for you or for your community on issues that are huge. The sewer plant's a good example. We had to invest $40 million. How could we have done that without a bond issue? Ultimately, borrowing the money from the state of Michigan on a bond over 30 years, but we couldn't have even attempted that. And then what do? You shut off the sewer plant? No, you don't. So you accept the responsibilities. Now, there are numbers out there, there are actuaries out there per capita where you should be on bond issues as a community. We're not even close. So I think it's education. I think Bill hit it right on the head. If we're going to do these roads, if you want to do Church Road and you want to do it on a $500,000, we couldn't start it for 3 years because you've got to have the money in place. Well, what happens 3 years from now on West River? Now you got 5 miles of West River gone, and you got these millage going over here to Church Road. You need to get in front of this train at the same speed it's going, because if you don't, it's going to run you over.
Then it's having the signals go off at the crossing and bringing and alerting everybody to the train's coming, we got it.
So fear of bonds is just because people don't understand. It's a debt, there's no doubt about it, and it's a debt for our community, but we all need to make that decision, where do we want our community 10 years from now? And if we don't start utilizing the resources that are available to us today, 10 years from now, we won't have to worry about having people move to Grove Seal because we'll all be driving on dirt roads.
And so if we do a major bond issue and get $10 or $15 million, then we do all the roads at one time.
Well,
Or
maybe the federal government comes out and says, we'll match you. So maybe we can do it with a $7 million bond and get $15 million worth of money.
and at the same time, probably get a better rate, or more bang for our buck, with all the equipment on site at one time, is doing a project.
Well, it's all market driven. Our island's too small to do too many big projects at one time because nobody's going to.
You get a commitment from a contractor to pave your roads, is one big project as opposed to a series of small projects.
You're right.
I'm just.
Yeah.
But I just don't want that fear of bonds, because bonds can be a very good thing. They can be overused, but they can be a very good thing, and they can help communities move forward rather than move backwards. And that's what's happening right now. We're moving backwards in our infrastructure. We can't continue to do that.
But you raise a good point, and I think when we prepare our presentation, we'll make sure that we address that issue, to explain how bonds work.
Thanks.
So thank you for your comments, both you and Ted, Tom. Any other comments on this? Would you like to participate in this discussion, Mr. Dornbush? Offer any thoughts? You're the only person, unless Joe would like to, but if you want to offer any thoughts, I'd be happy to hear from you.
What I think I heard was we got $300,000 in the road fund now, or in the
Right,
DPS fund.
right.
And at the end of the year, we expect to have
150. No, at the end of this year, this calendar year, we'll have 150,000 left.
at 150.
We spend about, and that's just doing basic maintenance.
And then 150,000 next year, and that would be,
Then we're done.
we're done. Okay. Which should be a selling point for the citizens. I would think so,
Very good.
but maybe not. All right, the other question then would be on the bond. If you talk in terms of a $15 million bond, how much additional tax money would have to go to support that bond?
Don't quote my numbers. I was just barking out numbers.
It's a guesstimate.
50 might not be enough, 7 might be too much, I don't know. I was just trying to make an issue on bonds.
Yeah.
And we don't know that until we see what the rate is on the bond issue and the term that we take the bond out for. And that would all be explained. In fact, it's going to be one of the things that have to go to the public. And the public has to agree to this before we can do it. But those numbers, I don't know what they are right now, but it would be much less, we could do a lot less with a lower millage on a bond than we could with a millage on a road that we had to go over 5 years.
The citizens have to vote on a bond issue?
We don't have to vote on it, but we have to publish it, and they have the opportunity to say, no, we don't want to go, and we don't want this bond anymore. We don't want to do this bond thing.
But the township
And then it
board-
would have to go to a vote.
Okay.
It's my understanding, Ted, that on any bond, it's my understanding that the citizens would have to vote on it. Because you're authorizing debt.
Well, that's not quite true, but okay. We won't get into that
Okay.
discussion. So
But-
I don't know. I would think that a bond would allow us to do it for less intrusive millage cost to pay off the bond payment than it would be to pay off a $3 million road over 3 years.
Because inflation helps in that.
Sure.
Okay. No other.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming to the meeting tonight.
Chair?
Yeah.
2 more comments.
Yep.
We have to figure out a way to make the road outlast the bonds. You don't want to have the road wear out before the bond expires, because you don't like to pay for things that are broken, right? And I think we're looking at a two-step proposal here. Short-term, the millage request, long-term bond proposal. That's kind of what I'm hearing as a suggestion. Does everybody, first of all, we gotta make sure that we can make it to that point where a bond could be purchased and used. So the millage request would be a...
I think in answer to that logic would have worked very well 10 years ago. But I don't know if everybody realizes how much trouble we're in roads here. I mean, it's huge. I mean, we're sitting with West River that's almost impassable on the northbound lane. East River needs major repairs on the west side. Church Road, Ferry Road, I mean, these roads are gone. And we haven't even got to the small courts, the LaSalle courts and places like that. We haven't even got there yet. So we've allowed it over the past 10 or 12 years to get, not we'll put it back on Wayne County, due to lack of funding, has allowed their roads to get to this level. And we're already in a catch-up mode. And I'm not trying to throw out scares or anything. We are. I mean, it's quite frank. And any road that has any truck traffic at all is going to suffer. So.
And it's fair to say that a lot of townships are in the same boat.
Yes.
Many cities are in the same boat, where they don't have, the money they get through the gas tax back to them is not enough to build any roads, rebuild roads. It's enough to maintain their system, but not enough to rebuild roads. I know that the Upper Peninsula communities, I know of one community that levies 6 mills additional besides the gas tax they get back just to plow snow. And so they have no money to build roads. It's a problem. So at any rate, this has been a great discussion. So
I just want to clarify one thing that you and I were briefly discussing. There would be no bond issue ever sought in this township without the vote of the public.
Right.
For a major bond like road repair or something like that.
Well, that would be I think that's the law. And I think to answer Wally's question, for a road project, you can't bond, it's my understanding, you can't bond for over 15 years for it, Wally, because it's not, I mean, you could build a sewage plant or water plant for 30 years because it's still going to be in existence. But you don't want to have a bond outstanding on the road and you got to repave it again 20 years down the road.
That's exactly what I was saying, Bill. The point I was trying to make was that we need a long-term plan, but we need an immediate plan. We're running out of time and we're running out of money.
All right, so is any other comments? If not, I'm going to summarize where I think we're at. We're going to advertise in the local newspaper and on the website that we're going to have a public discussion at our next meeting, and we'll start the agenda off with that discussion, if that's all right with everybody. And we will have a general discussion on roads. In the meantime, myself, and I'll call upon some of you, will prepare some kind of a presentation, PowerPoint or whatever, so we can put some stuff out, maybe a handout, and get information out. We've already got to start with this document. We just have to do some updating of it. And we will invite the Township Board to come, and the whole purpose of it will be, and we're going to probably abandon this idea of a task force, just get citizens interested. And I think one of the things our subcommittee discussed is if we get a number of citizens, we can say, go back to your neighborhoods and start talking this up. Because we don't have money. After 2012, we won't have money to do any maintenance, period. Agreed? Is that a good summary?
Is there going to be unlimited time on this meeting?
Sure. I think if we have, I don't know how many people we'll have. If we have 10, we'll give everybody a chance to talk. If there's 20, we'll give everybody a chance to talk. I don't know how many people we'd get at a meeting like that.
Well, if you're not going to get many people if they think they can only talk 3 minutes.
Oh.
we can plan on it being a late night.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could,
I've had a few of those.
As I've heard people quote before, you can, in 3 minutes, you ought to be able to get your point across. But if somebody's got something to say, we'll certainly extend that.
Constructive approaches are appreciated.
All right, well, thank you for the discussion on roads, and that'll be I don't think we need a motion for that. Nobody's objecting to that summary? Okay. Now we're back to our action items, which is the United Water contract.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Gordy's made a motion. I just want to tell him what motion he made.
There was no support for it.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to make the motion, but I think somebody on, but the motion should read, get your pencil out, kid. Recommending the Township Board to accept United Water's financial business proposal dated May 26, 2011, for a 3-year contract to continue to operate and maintain the wastewater treatment plant and lift stations, plus additional responsibility of sludge hauling per attachment, pending contract. So we're asking the board in this motion, or make a recommendation to the board in this motion to accept the financial proposal pending contract review by the DPS subcommittee, subsequent approval by the DPS Commission, legal review by the Township Council, and final contract language to be approved by the Township Board. And the reason behind those steps, that as soon as it has to go legal, we start spending money on this. And if the Township Board isn't going to accept the financial business plan or amount, then there's no sense in spending money on reviewing the contract until it goes forward.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, because that's a very good motion. So thank you.
All somebody's got to do is say yes.
Thank you. So, is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there support?
Yes.
Okay, I think that we had plenty of discussion on this item. Is there more comments? If not, I would ask for your vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Ted, for drafting that language. I assume you'll see that Lorenda's got a copy of it to help her. Is there any other business? There's no other business on our agenda. So at this time, is there any additional public comment? And if not, I have no other report. I've already said my piece, and I'll pursue the items on the West River Road closure. And with that, any other comments, Gordy?
Nope.
John?
Done.
Frank?
No, sir.
Molly?
Totally unrelated. Happy birthday to my wife Susan, and happy anniversary, our 42nd. She's a saint.
We need to adopt a resolution on that, then. Thank you. Well, congratulations, Wally. I hope tonight's not your anniversary night.
It is, and I'm here.
Oh,
She
my.
has the doghouse swept out.
Oh, my Lord. Well, thank you for being here. Ted, any further comments?
Just want to congratulate Tom Alvesto again for his appointment to the, it helps me a lot when, even though he had a little time on the DPS Commission, he got himself involved and he understands the issues that we need to bring forward to the Township Board and their importance. And we're going to miss you on this commission for sure.
John tapped me on the shoulder. You have something to say, John?
One other thing I thought about was several weeks ago, the building inspector, Richard Slegay, died. And he was a wonderful fellow, worked for the township for about 40 years, and I did not see anything in the EO camera. So he worked with the DPS many, many times for many, many years. And I'd just like to say that I'm sure that many people will miss him and will continue to do so for some time. And that's all I have to say.
Very good. Thank you, John. If there's no other items to come before the commission, we'll take a vote on adjourning the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Move and support it. Is there support? Move and support it that the meeting be adjourned. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.